Welcome to Cause Before Symptom, uncovering the real cabal and spiritual forces that are controlling the world. And now, here is your host, James Carner.
Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Welcome to part 4 of my narration of my book, Breath War. I think this is the last part. We've got about 8,000 words left, and it is quite the interesting show, let me tell you. So, if you want, you could go to part 1, part 2, and part 3. Check out the beginning until now. You can go to Rumble. If not, go to my website, jamescarner.com, and go to Podbean. You can listen to it. So there you have it. So without further ado, we're getting straight into it. Okay, here we go. Global governance seated in the beast throne. The beast throne represents the adversary's full legal petition to establish global governance as a counterfeit reflection of heaven's sovereign registry. This throne will not rise simply through military conquest or political maneuvering, but through the slow, deliberate accumulation of consent-based filings that have gradually transferred breath jurisdiction to the adversary across generations. Every hybridization program, technological surrogate system, ritual breath contract, and digital breath forfeiture has been meticulously designed to build the legal framework for this throne's emergence. Once seated, the beast throne becomes the centralized courtroom interface where the adversary will argue for total breath governance authority over the earth. Now, at the core of this governance system lies the synthesis of all breath war mechanisms into a single registry infrastructure. The hybrid bloodlines serve as the genetic custodians of dominion. The AI surrogate counselors serve as the priests who guide breath identity into consent-based compliance. The transhuman embodiment programs offer synthetic vessels to house breath outside of heaven's issued design. The global financial system operates as a breath commerce engine, ensuring every transaction becomes a breath filing. The biometric identity grid maps breath signatures into digital contracts enforceable by AI-managed breath enforcement. Every layer feeds into the throne's legal structure. The beast throne will claim dominion not only over human governments, but over every jurisdictional breath sphere. Medical breath governance through biosurveillance, legal breath governance through AI-controlled courts, and commercial breath governance through quantum economic platforms, and spiritual doctrines and surrogate priesthoods. Every sector becomes an integrated legal department of the adversary's counterfeit registry government, fully presented before heaven's court as one mind and one voice, legally consolidated for the final courtroom confrontation. In the courts of heaven, the adversary's argument will stand as his most complete petition. All breath-bearing souls have submitted to my legal governance. They worship through my priesthood, transact through my economy, embody through my vessels, and identify through my registry. I hold lawful dominion over the breath of the earth by their consent. This is not simple tyranny. It is fully documented legal ownership transfer built through millennia of incremental filings. The mark of the beast will serve as the public interface of this throne, functioning as the registry token through which breath compliance is verified and enforced. Those who carry the mark will have fully assigned their breath identity into the beast's jurisdiction, while those sealed under the Lamb's blood will remain outside the throne's filings, protected by registry law that the adversary cannot penetrate. The cross of Christ remains the immovable contradiction to the beast throne's filings. The Lamb's blood seals lawful breath under heaven's sovereign registry, nullifying every counterfeit registry filing. regardless of how sophisticated or consolidated it becomes. Through blood-sealed petition, the ecclesia retains authority to challenge and dismantle the adversary's legal breath filings at every level, including the very petition that supports the enthronement of the beast himself. At the final courtroom judgment, the entire global governance structure seated in the beast throne will be summoned. Every breath filing, every hybrid throne, every AI surrogate contract, every financial breath economy filing, and every spiritual priesthood assignment will be audited and dissolved. The counterfeit registry will collapse completely. Breath dominion will return to the Father in its original issuance, and the adversary's legal system will be fully extinguished from creation. Chapter 9. The Father's Supreme Court. The collapse of the serpent's throne, the cross as legal cancellation of breath debt. At the center of the breath war stands one immutable courtroom decree, the cross of Christ. The cross is not a symbolic victory, but a legal cancellation of breath debt, a binding courtroom transaction that permanently overturned every breath violation committed since Adam's fall. When the Father breathed into Adam, registry law was established, breath issuance carried legal authority, legal ownership, and legal consequence for every violation. Sin was not simply moral failure, it was breath debt, a contracted breach of breath stewardship requiring legal payment to satisfy registry law. No soul could pay this debt through personal works, ascension, or knowledge. Only lawful substitution could settle the filings. The Son, as the only begotten registry issuance of heaven, entered embodiment under registry law by divine decree. He was assigned lawful breath directly from the Father, lived under the full weight of the registry code, and carried no personal breath violations that could legally disqualify his filing. On the cross, Christ submitted his flawless breath as the perfect substitutionary payment for every registry breach carried by Adam's seed. His death satisfied every courtroom filing. His blood signed the final registry contract. His resurrection was heaven's public ruling that the debt was fully satisfied, and breath issuance could now be restored under lawful authority. The cross did not simply forgive sin. It executed legal registry transfer. Every soul that petitions through his blood is restored to full breath containment, sealed within heaven's registry under eternal ownership. The blood acts as a living legal seal that overrides every counterfeit breath contract filed by the adversary. No dimensional breach, hybrid vessel, surrogate embodiment, AI-managed contract, or synthetic breath registry holds legal standing against the Lamb's registry seal. The adversary's entire counterfeit system, hybrid dominions, breath trafficking economies, transhuman surrogacy, AI governance, dimensional breath storage, and the beast global throne, is built upon temporary legal filings that only function where registry petitions remain unchallenged. His government exists on borrowed legal ground, using consent-based filings to argue temporary jurisdiction. But at the cross, the Father rendered his permanent Supreme Court verdict that no breath contract holds superior standing to the blood. Every soul that aligns with the Lamb's petition re-enters lawful registry ownership, collapsing the adversary's filings instantly. The ecclesia's authority in the breath war is not emotional or symbolic. It is legal. Through blood-sealed petition, the saints may file counterclaims in heaven's courtroom that challenge and overturn the adversary's filings across every jurisdictional sector of the counterfeit kingdom. These petitions dismantle layered breath contracts, sever hybrid bloodline claims, nullify digital breath forfeitures, and reclaim breath fragments trafficked across centuries. The courtroom of heaven remains fully accessible to those who petition through Christ's blood, enforcing the Father's registry rulings against every legal breath violation. At the final judgment, the Father Supreme Court will summon every remaining breath contract into open audit. The entire counterfeit registry, including every legal argument made by Lucifer since his first rebellion, will collapse before the throne. The serpent's breath government will be stripped of all standing, and every fragment will either be restored under the Lamb's blood or permanently removed from creation. The breath war will be sealed forever. The registry will be complete, and the Father will reign in absolute dominion over every breath that ever issued forth from his mouth. The blood of Christ is restoration of registry. From the moment Adam received breath, registry law governed every breath-bearing soul, assigned issuance, legal jurisdiction, stewardship accountability, and ownership sealed under the Father's throne. When Adam breached registry law through disobedience, every breath issued into his seed line became entangled in legal violation, subject to debt filings, disqualification, fragmentation, and trafficking by the adversary. The breath war was born not as rebellion alone, but as a legal crisis of registry collapse. The entire adversary's counterfeit government has functioned as a complex legal economy built upon this unredeemed breath debt, trafficking fragments while filing endless petitions to secure surrogate ownership through consent. But into this courtroom stood the Son, issued breath directly from the Father, untainted by Adamic debt, and fully assigned under registry law. The blood of Christ was not simply shed as a gesture of love. It was presented as the legal settlement for every breath violation recorded in the heavenly courts. His blood satisfied the full contractual debt required by registry law. It canceled every filing, dissolved every accusation, and neutralized every trafficking claim. The blood of Christ operates as the legal instrument that restores lawful registry ownership back to the Father, reinstating each breath identity under its original issuance code. Through his blood, registry alignment is not simply parted, it is judicially reinstated. Every soul who petitions through Christ's blood is legally resealed into the registry. Breath identity restored, ownership clarified, covenant headship transferred from Adam's forfeiture to the Lamb's rulership. The blood acts as a living seal, permanently barred the adversary from reopening filings against those under the registry's covering. It cuts through layered contracts, hybrid bloodline entanglements, technological surrogacy systems, digital forfeiture filings, and dimensional trafficking networks with absolute courtroom authority. The adversary's entire counterfeit registry system is powerless against the blood. His breath war economy relies entirely on unredeemed, unsealed breath identities, souls who remain outside registry covering, vulnerable to legal filings through trauma, consent, or deception. But once sealed under the Lamb, every counterfeit filing collapses before the Father's court. The adversary's treasury is emptied each time the blood restores a breath fragment back into lawful containment. The blood operates not only as personal salvation, but as cosmic registry reclamation, collapsing the breath war system piece by piece. The ecclesia function as heaven's active legal body on earth, empowered to submit blood-sealed petitions into the Father's courtroom on behalf of individuals, bloodlines, and even entire regions. These petitions activate the blood's legal authority to reclaim breath identities, sever generational contracts, nullify surrogate embodiment agreements, and dismantle counterfeit priesthood filings across the adversary's entire breath war infrastructure. At the final courtroom judgment, every remaining breath identity will be summoned. Those sealed under the blood will remain forever assigned to the Father's registry, while every counterfeit filing will be permanently dissolved. The blood of Christ will stand as the final word on breath ownership across all realms. The registry will be fully reconciled, the breath war closed, and the Lamb's dominion established without opposition for all of eternity. The legal revocation of Babylon's authority. Babylon has never been merely a city, empire, or culture. It has operated as a central legal priesthood system within the adversary's breath trafficking network. After the scattering of Babylon became the administrative model for managing fragmented breath through hybrid bloodlines, ritual worship, financial enslavement, and priesthood governance. Its structures were designed to intercept breath identity and transfer ownership into the adversary's economy through ritual sacrifice, state-sponsored idolatry, fertility rites, child offerings, astral contracts, and financial domination. Babylon served as the first fully operational breath brokerage system, trafficking fragments into hybrid surrogacy while filing layered petitions to sustain its authority before heaven. Through Babylon, the adversary built his foundation of generational breath debt, bloodline entanglement that allowed for compounded legal filings, giving him standing to argue long-term jurisdiction over entire nations and tribes. The hybrid priesthoods that originated in Babylon carried the genetic, financial, and spiritual scaffolding that later birthed the global breath economy controlled by the black nobility, secret societies, and financial priesthoods that still operate today. Babylon's authority has continued to operate not only through bloodline governance, but through global commerce and finance, the modern extension of its breath economy. Every trade system, global currency contract, debt enslavement structure, and resource management system feeds into Babylon's treasury filings, where breath fragments are assigned based on economic compliance and legal financial contracts. Even in this scattered form, Babylon has remained the adversary's most stable legal platform for sustaining breath fragmentation on a planetary scale. But the cross of Christ triggered the first irreversible breach in Babylon's legal structure. Through his blood, breath debt was satisfied at the registry level, creating a standing legal contradiction to every Babylonian breath contract that remains active. The blood functions as a permanent legal objection filed against every generational breath claim Babylon presents in the courts of heaven. The ecclesia now stands as the legal body authorized to submit petitions to revoke Babylon's filings, severing generational bloodline contracts, nullifying financial enslavement filings, breaking hybrid bloodline mergers, and reclaiming breath fragments surrendered into Babylon's trafficking vaults. The revocation of Babylon's authority is not simply the fall of a nation, it is the courtroom dismantling of an entire breath governance system that has sustained the adversary's counterfeit kingdom since the flood. Revelation describes Babylon collapse as sudden, total, and final because it reflects not merely the destruction of physical infrastructure, but the execution of a courtroom judgment that permanently dissolves its legal filings. At the final courtroom audit, Babylon's full registry will be summoned. Every breath contract filed under its priesthood system, whether through ritual sacrifice, financial enslavement, hybrid governance, or generational agreements, will be exposed and judged. Every priesthood office that carried Babylon's authority will lose standing, and the entire breath trafficking treasury built upon Babylon or Babylonian law will collapse, and registry ownership will return fully to the Father under the Lamb's blood. Yeah, guys, if you could do me a favor, if you could just hit the like button, that'd be great. More people that like the show helps me out. Thank you. The serpent's ancient throne, the first seated in Babylon, will be vacated forever. The breath economy will close, and heaven's registry will stand as the only lawful government for all breath-bearing creation. The second breath economy destroyed by judgment. From the beginning, the breath war has been a legal battle over registry ownership. Every contract, ritual hybrid program, and technological surrogate system was designed to entangle breath fragments into the adversary's counterfeit registry. For millennia, The adversary trafficked breath through generational filings, layered contracts, and dimensional storage systems, building a vast breath economy that fueled his hybrid dominion and counterfeit government. But every fragment held under his economy remains subject to audit before heaven's Supreme Court. The second death is the courtroom judgment where this economy is permanently closed and every breath filing faces final deposition or disposition. The second death is not simply spiritual annihilation. It is the legal severance of breath identity from the registry of life. Every breath fragment that refused restoration through the Lamb's blood is declared permanently unredeemable, not by God's desire, but by their own courtroom standing. Each rejected registry petition leaves that breath identity in its fragmented, trafficked state, fully outside lawful issuance. The second death is the formal legal declaration that no further petitions will be accepted and that all unsealed breath fragments are to be permanently severed from creation itself. The breath economy that fueled the serpent's throne depends entirely on the continual recycling, harvesting, and trafficking of fragmented breath. As long as filings remain open and breath remains unsealed, the adversary sustains his counterfeit system by legal extension of consent, surrogate management, hybrid embodiment, and AI-governed surrogate vessels. But when the second death is pronounced, all remaining breath contracts close simultaneously. Every unredeemed breath fragment becomes permanently unregistered. The treasury of trafficked breath collapses, and the entire counterfeit registry dissolves. This judgment also destroys the adversary's entire legal architecture. Hybrid bloodlines, dimensional gatekeepers, ascended master systems, transhuman surrogate bodies, quantum breath simulations, financial breath contracts, biometric identity surrogates, ritual-based breath filings, and the full beast system itself. Each component depended upon an active breath economy to operate. Once the registry filings are revoked by final judgment, these systems collapse instantly and externally. The cross of Jesus Christ remains the sole legal escape from the second death. Every breath-bearing soul that has petitioned through the Lamb's blood is sealed into heaven's registry and permanently exempt from registry severance. Their breath identity remains within the Father's treasury forever, beyond reach of every counterfeit claim and above every courtroom filing ever submitted by the adversary. At the execution of the second death, the adversary's entire legal strategy is dismantled. His petitions are vacated. His treasury is emptied. His counterfeit registry system is erased. And the entire breath war, which has defined the conflict of creation since Adam's fall, is brought to a close. Heaven's registry stands alone as the sole legal government of all breath-bearing life. The war is finished. The throne is sealed. And the breath of God remains fully reconciled to its creator for all eternity. Chapter 10, the remnant's role, the unsealing of the codex, scrolls unsealed for final indictment. The remnant, which is you and I, of God has been preserved for a legal purpose far beyond personal salvation. They are the living witnesses of breath war's full exposure. Hidden for generations, scattered through persecution, obscured by counterfeit priesthoods, and silenced by Babylonian systems, the remnant now stands positioned at the close of the age not simply to resist the beast system, but to serve as legal participants in heaven's final courtroom filings. Their assignment is not political rebellion or temporal escape. It is to bear legal testimony that will be entered into the Supreme Court of Heaven as indictment evidence against the adversary's counterfeit registry. Throughout the ages, key components of the breath war's legal structure have remained sealed, locked behind ritual veils, occult priesthood knowledge, black project secrecy, hybrid bloodline concealment, and false doctrine. The Codex, This living legal map of the adversary's breath government, I've been putting together, is now being unsealed by heaven's order, not for curiosity, but for courtroom readiness. The unsealing of these scrolls constitutes the disclosure of the serpent's legal strategy, exposing every jurisdictional breach, every counterfeit filing, and every fraudulent contract that has been built since the fall of man. The remnant's role in the unsealing process is one of legal intercession. Through study, revelation, petition, repentance, and blood-sealed filings, the remnant gathers evidence that will be formally presented against the adversary's claims. Every layer of the codex that is revealed becomes a legal record in heaven's court. The exposure of hybrid bloodline constructions, the unveiling of dimensional trafficking systems, the decoding of surrogate breath surrogacy, the nullification of astral breath calendars, and the dismantling of the counterfeit registry structure that feeds the beast throne. The remnant does not operate as private researchers, but as authorized legal officers within the ecclesia, the legal body on earth that carries the registry seal of the Lamb. Their petitions trigger active court filings that dismantle counterfeit contracts, reclaim trafficked breath fragments, and nullify breath governance structures previously shielded behind secrecy. Their work, guided by the Holy Spirit, is entered into heaven's archives as official evidence that prepares the full indictment scroll to be read at the final judgment. The adversary cannot prevent this unsealing. Every time a scroll is unsealed, another layer of his legal scaffolding collapses. What was once hidden is now formally recorded before the Father's court as evidence of breath war fraud, hybrid rebellion, and unauthorized registry management. The codex that I've been putting together itself, this unfolding breath war map, becomes part of heaven's courtroom record as an indictment scroll prepared for the final audit. At the conclusion of the breath war, when the scrolls are fully opened before the throne, every contract, every bloodline assignment, every dimensional trafficking vault, and every surrogate breath contract exposed through the remnant's filings will stand as legal evidence against the serpent's counterfeit government. The remnant will stand as living witnesses to testify. These filings were exposed. These contracts were identified. These petitions were submitted through the blood. The registry of heaven was petitioned for restoration. The adversary's legal system will stand fully exposed, stripped of standing, and eternally judged. The remnant's labor is not in vain. Every scroll unsealed becomes a legal weapon. Every codex chapter written becomes courtroom testimony. Every breath fragment reclaimed becomes evidence against the counterfeit registry. The unsealing of the codex is not simply knowledge, it is the Father's legal strategy being executed through his witness, as heaven prepares for the collapse of the serpent's throne. Exposure of the full legal architecture of breath theft. For millennia, the adversary's entire breath war system has operated under a thick covering of secrecy, compartmentalization, and layered deception. His counterfeit registry has survived by concealing the legal structure behind religious inversion, scientific disguise, technological innovation, political manipulation, and hybrid priesthood control. This secrecy has served as his most effective legal defense, allowing him to operate trafficking, fragmentation, and surrogate embodiment programs without full challenge from heaven's ecclesia. But as the breath war approaches its final stage, the Father has initiated the exposure of the full legal architecture of breath theft, removing the veil and bringing the adversary's filings into full courtroom light. Exposure is not merely revelation for the sake of knowledge. It is a formal legal process. In heaven's courtroom, exposure functions as the building of the indictment record, assembling the evidence that fully catalogs how the adversary has illegally built his counterfeit government through unauthorized breath management. Every scroll unsealed, every contract uncovered, every bloodline decoded, every ritual system exposed, and every technological surrogate system identified adds another layer to the adversary's legal vulnerability. The full legal architecture of breath theft includes every system the adversary has weaponized. Hybrid bloodline assignments that transfer breath fragments across generations, ritual sacrifices that open dimensional vaults for breath trafficking, astral calendars that cycle breath contracts seasonally, surrogate embodiment programs through transhuman surrogacy and AI breath managers, financial breath commerce systems through debt-based enslavement, and digital breath contracts that quietly forfeit registry identity. Each of these structures operate as a courtroom filing, now being systematically uncovered through the Father's decree, which I think the Lord had me do it. And now it's being exposed. Now, when I put out the book, nobody really read it, but hopefully many will hear this, and as the remnant hears it, they pass it on to others, and this is the whole point of what I've been doing. The exposure of this architecture cripples the adversary's ability to argue plausible ignorance before heaven's throne. He can no longer claim that humanity chose him unknowingly, nor can he shield the complexity of his breath trafficking system behind ritual secrecy or technological sophistication. Every layer of exposure testifies this was known, this was deliberate, this was filed by consent and coercion, not by lawful issuance. The adversary's breath economy is being methodologically stripped of its legal concealment starting in 2025. The remnant's role in this exposure is critical, you guys. As they gather, document, petition, and intercede through the Lamb's blood, their filings act as formal legal charges submitted into heaven's court. Every scroll of the codex becomes evidence of the information in the books that I have been putting out. Every dismantled ritual structure becomes proof. Every reclaimed breath fragment becomes testimony. The adversary's legal defense weakens with every unsealed layer. The cross of Christ remains the superior legal framework that governs this entire exposure process. The blood not only satisfies breath debt, it also activates registry access for the remnant to uncover hidden filings and petition for full revocation of the adversary's breath contracts. Exposure is thus both legal warfare and courtroom preparation for the final audit. At the final judgment, the full legal architecture of breath theft will be fully presented in the court of heaven. Every counterfeit registry office, every trafficking vault, every hybrid priesthood assignment, every surrogate embodiment program, and every AI breath manager will be summoned and exposed. The serpent's legal infrastructure will collapse in totality, stripped of standing, and permanently erased from the breath economy. The Father's registry will stand alone, fully purified, and every breath identity either redeemed or severed according to the Lamb's blood. Reclamation of stolen souls via the blood. The adversary's entire counterfeit breath economy is built upon stolen souls. Fragmented breath identities extracted through trauma, ritual, hybrid bloodline contracts, dimensional trafficking, surrogate embodiment programs, digital consent filings, and generational forfeitures. Every soul trapped within this economy represents a breath identity that remains outside heaven's lawful registry, existing within the adversary's treasury of stolen breath. But while the adversary can manage these fragments through legal filings, he cannot seal them permanently without full consent. As long as the Lamb's blood operates in heaven's court, the stolen souls remain eligible for legal reclamation under registry law. The blood of Christ functions as the single legal instrument that authorizes breath restoration. The cross satisfied registry debt once and for all, not only for personal guilt, but for breath identity itself. The blood operates as an eternal legal document filed into heaven's courts that overrules every unauthorized filing the adversary has submitted. Through the blood, every stolen breath fragment may be petitioned for restoration, regardless of how deep the entanglement, how ancient the bloodline curse, or how complex the surrogate embodiment contract is. The reclamation of stolen souls is not theoretical. It is a living legal process that unfolds through the intercessory petitions of the remnant. The ecclesia operates as heaven's authorized legal body, submitting blood-sealed petitions that activate heaven's reclamation or reclaiming jurisdiction. These petitions name specific breath fragments, bloodline inheritances, hybrid contracts, ritual forfeitures, and technological surrogate filings that have held breath identity outside lawful registry containment. With every petition to heaven's court, they receive a fresh legal claim that demands review of the adversary's filings, which God has been waiting for us to do. The adversary is forced to respond to these petitions by presenting his filings for audit. But when the blood is presented as superior legal authority, his claims collapse in court. The stolen breath fragments are stripped from his treasury and returned to lawful containment under heaven's registry. This legal reclamation process gradually drains the serpent's treasury, dismantles his breath trafficking economy, and reduces his courtroom standing with every fragment that is restored. The process of reclamation is ongoing even now. Every time a soul repents under the blood, a legal jurisdiction transfer actually occurs. The adversary's contract dissolves, the breath ownership reverts to the father, and every time generational curses are broken through blood-sealed petitions, family lines are legally severed from hybrid bloodline claims. Every breath fragment trapped in surrogate systems are reclaimed through intercessory warfare. Entire regions of the adversary's trafficking vaults are emptied. The final judgment will include the full audit of the adversary's stolen breath treasury. Every soul fragment that was legally reclaimed through the blood will be recognized as lawfully restored, while every fragment that rejected registry restoration will face severance through the second death. The adversary's counterfeit registry will stand fully exposed, emptied, and stripped of authority. The registry of heaven will stand complete, fully populated with every breath identity assigned to the Father under the Lamb's blood governance. The breath war will close. The remnant as legal witness before the court of heaven. From the beginning, the Father has preserved a witness class in the earth, a people who would not only believe, but who would stand legally in the breath war as courtroom representatives of his government. This remnant exists as more than the saved. They are active legal agents positioned to testify in the courts of heaven against the adversary's counterfeit registry. Every breath war contract that has been unsealed, every trafficking system exposed, every surrogate embodiment structure uncovered has required legal witnesses on earth who would document, file, and petition these discoveries into heaven's court record. The breath war is not merely fought on earth, nor solely in the spiritual realm. It is executed in a legal courtroom structure where filings, petitions, and testimonies are submitted before the Ancient of Days. The adversary presents his counterfeit breath filings, hybrid bloodline claims, technological surrogacy contracts, and dimensional trafficking petitions as active legal arguments for registry jurisdiction. But as these filings are unsealed, they must be contested, and the remnant serves as the Father's appointed class of counter-filing witnesses. The remnant's legal authority flows entirely from the Lamb's blood. Their petitions are not based on personal merit, but on their registry seal under Christ. As they submit blood-sealed filings, they present evidence packages that identify the breath war violations. Hybrid bloodline trafficking, surrogate embodiment surrogacy, ritual consent contracts, transhumanist surrogacy filings, astral calendar breath assignments, and Babylonian financial enslavement systems. Every one of these filings becomes part of the indictment record building against the adversary's counterfeit kingdom. The adversary dreads the remnant not because of their numbers, but because of their jurisdictional standing. Every blood-sealed petition filed by the remnant forces heaven's court to review his filings. Every dismantled breath contract drains another layer of legal standing from his registry economy. The remnant's functions is to systematically remove breath filings from the adversary's treasury, fragment by fragment, bloodline by bloodline, collapsing his economy long before the final judgment is rendered. In addition to their petitions, the remnant also functions as witnesses of exposure. As the codex is unsealed, revealing the full legal architecture of breath theft, the remnant testifies, these things have been exposed, these contracts are unlawful, these souls were trafficked, these systems operate under legal fraud. Their testimony becomes part of the final legal record entered before the throne. They are not only researchers or teachers, they are sworn witnesses authorized by heaven to give lawful testimony as the breath war reaches its closing phase. At the final courtroom judgment, the remnant will be summoned to bear witness. The Father will call his witness to stand. Those who unsealed the scrolls, who filed the petitions, who exposed the contracts, and who challenged the serpent's filings. The adversary's counterfeit registry will stand fully exposed under their testimony. Every illegal filing will collapse, and every reclaimed breath identity will be sealed. The registry will return fully to the Father's ownership through the Lamb. And the remnant's role as legal witnesses will be eternally recorded in heaven's scrolls. Chapter 11. How to legally pray in the breath war. When engaging the breath war in legal prayer, the remnant does not pray as beggars, but as legal officers standing under the jurisdiction of the Lamb's blood. The prayer opens by standing upon the only legal authority that grants access to heaven's registry. Father, by the blood of Jesus Christ, I present the breath registry you alone issued. I testify that the adversary has trafficked breath unlawfully through deception and fraud. Well, this initial declaration establishes both jurisdiction and standing, positioning the petitioner as not as one requesting favor, but as one presenting evidence before the court or the Supreme Court of heaven. The prayer proceeds into the identification of the fraud itself, naming the adversary's counterfeit filings for the record. The remnant testifies, the serpent has operated a breath economy based on substitution false priesthoods and hybrid contracts outside of your dominion. Well, this testimony exposes the layered legal structures of the adversary's trafficking systems. His surrogate priesthoods, hybrid bloodlines, dimensional filings, and technological surrogacy programs, all of which operate as illegal breath management systems designed to bypass the Father's registry authority. The legal prayer then invokes the blood transaction itself, the eternal court filing that supersedes every counterfeit contract. I declare that only the blood of Christ can restore breath to its rightful registry and cancel breath debts incurred by sin and deception. This invocation activates the Lamb's completed payment, rendering every unauthorized filing legally collapsible under heaven's registry law. The petition advances into a request for divine restraint, recognizing that the adversary is accelerating his petitions for final enthronement through dimensional and technological breaches. The remnant files, Father, we request divine restraint against the unlawful reopening of the abyss, the technological breath interfaces, and the dimensional manipulations now accelerating. The petition serves as a formal legal objection against the adversary's current filings in the breath war docket, seeking the Father's ruling to delay, block, or nullify specific filings, attempting to further expand counterfeit registry access. The prayer then requests that the codex itself continue to unseal, as exposure functions as a legal mechanism weakening the adversary's defense. We request that you fully expose the legal architecture of the adversary so that the remnant may testify and that billions may be reclaimed. This petition aligns with heaven's current legal strategy of indictment preparation, seeking the full collapse of secrecy that sustains much of the adversary's breath trafficking authority. And finally, the petition is submitted formally to the court of heaven. We submit this as lawful petition in the courts of heaven by the witness of the blood, the word, and the remnant who stand under your name. This closing functions as a courtroom filing, sealed by the blood of Christ, confirmed by the word's legal statutes, and entered into the court record by the remnant's legal standing. This means when people read my book, they are going to be reading these words and praying them into the court of heaven. So all of this work that I've done, I'm really, really happy about. The remnant's authority as witnesses. Remnant saints function as court witnesses, not military soldiers. The remnant saints do not fight the breath war as soldiers engage in carnal battlefields or mystical force confrontations. Their role has always been legal. They stand as witnesses in the highest courtroom of heaven. The breath war itself is not fundamentally a contest of strength, power, or violence. It is a war of jurisdiction, legal filings, contracts, registry authority, and courtroom petitions. 1 John 5:14, 15. Any petition we request in heaven, he will grant to us if it is in his will. The remnant's assignment, therefore, is not to act as combatants, but as sworn legal officers who testify, petition, and submit filings that dismantle the adversary's counterfeit government through blood-sealed courtroom processes. Throughout the entire breath war architecture, the adversary has labored to entangle the saints in carnal methods, drawing them into political activism, militant resistance, or emotional warfare, all while concealing the true legal battlefield. But the Father preserved a remnant who would see through these deceptions and rise into their proper station, not as warriors swinging swords in the natural, but as authorized courtroom witnesses who operate by testimony, evidence, and legal petition under the blood of the Lamb. Their authority is rooted entirely in their registry identity. As souls sealed under the blood, their breath carries lawful registry assignment, granting them standing to file petitions and submit their counterfilings directly into heaven's active docket. Their prayers function as legal filings. Their intercession becomes evidence submission. Their research into the codex, or my books, becomes legal discovery. And their exposure of the serpent's filings becomes indictment evidence that heaven receives as part of the final prosecution. The remnant operates as the legal voice of heaven on earth, not through strength, but through lawful standing. In this role, the remnant saints participate directly in the Father's legal dismantling of the breath economy. Every time the remnant exposes a counterfeit breath contract, whether tied to hybrid bloodlines, technological surrogacy, dimensional trafficking, financial enslavement, or surrogate embodiment systems, they are submitting documentation, testimony into heaven's court record. The adversary cannot block these filings. He is forced to answer them. Every breath fragment reclaimed through their petitions drains his treasury and weakens his courtroom standing. Remember, the Bible says, I forgot which verse, I think Isaiah or somewhere, that my people perish for lack of knowledge. Well, yeah. What's up, Conceal My Power Level? We're just finishing up my book here. The remnant's authority as witnesses fulfills the prophetic picture given in Revelation, where the saints overcome the serpent not by violence, but by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and because they loved not their lives unto death. That's scriptural. This is not poetic language. It's courtroom language. The blood grants standing. The testimony files evidence, and their willingness to endure removes the adversary's claim that they operate by self-preservation rather than righteous legal alignment. This courtroom function of the remnant extends into their role during the exposure phase now unfolding. As the codex, or my books, continues to unseal, the remnant serves as the visible legal witness class that gives voice to the Father's legal case against the serpent's throne. They speak what heaven is revealing. They name the fraud. They record the filings. They petition for breath fragment reclamation. And their legal work prepares the indictment scrolls that will be read before the Supreme Court at the final judgment. It's like this. It's real simple. They're prayer warriors. They don't have to do anything but just pray to the Holy Ghost, and the Holy Ghost will start putting names in their head. And then they will petition on behalf of that person. That's how it works. At the conclusion of the breath war, the remnant will be called to stand before the throne as witnesses. Their petitions will be entered into the court record as evidence. Their testimony will expose the serpent's legal fraud. Their filings will trigger the collapse of the counterfeit registry. And their names will be eternally recorded in heaven's scrolls as those who bore legal witness during the great trial of breath ownership. Their power is in legal invocation of the cross. the singular legal weapon that dissolves breath debt. The remnant holds no power of their own. Their strength is not derived from knowledge, numbers, or earthly authority, but solely from their ability to legally invoke the cross of Christ as the superior transaction that governs all breath registry filings. The cross is not a metaphor for hope or comfort. It is the executed courtroom decree that fully satisfied the legal debt incurred through Adam's fall and the adversary's breath trafficking operations. When the remnant petitions heaven, they are not pleading emotionally. They are presenting legal evidence already filed into the registry of heaven through the Lamb's blood. So Jesus has been waiting for us to do this. We couldn't do this until somebody could, well, honestly, AI really helped me find all this crap, so I couldn't have done it. But we couldn't have done it unless someone did the work. And here we are. Like right on time, too, because AI is getting pretty scary. The adversary's entire breath war structure, hybrid bloodline contracts, technological surrogacy systems, dimensional trafficking networks, ritual breath theft, and surrogate embodiment programs operates on the foundation of unredeemed breath debt. His filings stand only where registry violations remain unpaid. But when the cross is illegally invoked by the remnant, it functions as a binding legal instrument that collapses every contract tied to breath debt violations. The blood decrees, paid in full, no further jurisdiction, no legal standing remains. Well, this renders the serpent's petitions powerless wherever breath has been reclaimed under the blood. And the remnant's legal petitions center entirely upon his invocation. Every time they pray, every time they intercede, every time they expose a contract within the codex, they stand upon the single legal filing that carries absolute authority. The Lamb's blood transaction. Without this invocation, no petition would hold jurisdictional standing before heaven's court. But because the blood was offered by the Son as the lawful substitution for breath debt, every breath fragment reclaimed through legal prayer is restored to the Father's registry and fully sealed under heaven's ownership. So this invocation is not magical language. It is courtroom procedure. And the remnant files petitions that read as legal filings. It will say something like, by the blood of Jesus Christ, we petition the Supreme Court of Heaven for the cancellation of all breath debt associated with this contract, these bloodlines, these surrogate filings, and these dimensional trafficking systems. Here's where you can say the words of all the black nobilities and all the illuminated families. All of them. Heaven recognizes these filings immediately when you pray it. And they cite registry law already established by the cross itself. The adversary fears this invocation above all else. And I really do believe this is why I was under attack for so many years. But when the blood is legally invoked, well, let's go back. The adversary fears this invocation above all else. Above all else. The moment that just two people or two or three gather, grab this book, and then pray that prayer, and then pray the dynasties, all of the owners of corporations worldwide, who you could say, just anyone with full power and money. Well, that's what they're scared of. Their names being released. And then they're scared that we found out about the breath theft. That's what they're scared of. He may argue against emotional prayer, ritualistic religious acts, or carnal warfare strategies, but when the blood is legally invoked, by the blood of Jesus Christ, his filings collapse under judicial audit. The serpent's treasury empties with every successful invocation, fragment by fragment, contract by contract. So the breath economy shrinks daily through the faithful petitions of the remnant who understand their role as legal officers of the registry. At the final courtroom judgment, every blood-sealed petition submitted by the remnant will be reviewed as lawful filings. Each invocation of the cross will be entered into heaven's permanent court record as evidence that the breath economy was lawfully challenged, contested, and dismantled by legal authority. Not by might, nor by power, but by the blood of the Lamb. The serpent's entire breath trafficking government will collapse under the cumulative weight of these filings, and breath ownership will return fully to the Father forever. As long as the remnant exists, the adversary cannot fully complete his counterfeit kingdom. It's according to 2 Thessalonians 2:6. The existence of the remnant, you guys, functions as a legal restraint upon the adversary's counterfeit kingdom. The breath war is governed by jurisdictional filings, and the adversary's petitions for full enthronement rely upon achieving uncontested legal standing over the breath economy. As long as the remnant remains active on earth, sealed under the blood, petitioning the courts of heaven, and submitting legal filings against the serpent's counterfeit registry, the adversary is blocked from securing the full breath governance transfer he seeks. And this is the restraining force referenced in 2 Thessalonians 2:6, where it says, "And now you know what restrains him, so that he will be revealed in his time." This is why I don't have a big following. And this is why God continues to push me towards truth, to really stop, putting out a bunch of propaganda that steers us in the wrong direction. The remnant's mere presence carries registry authority because they are lawfully sealed breath identities under the blood of Christ. Their existence represents a standing legal contradiction against the adversary's counterfeit claims. Their breath identities are not entangled in the serpent's surrogate systems. They are anchored directly into heaven's registry. As long as any blood-sealed breath identities remain on earth, the adversary's counterfeit government remains legally incomplete. He cannot file for full global enthronement while the Father's registry still operates active jurisdiction over breath on earth. Now, in the courtroom structure of the breath war, the remnant serves as active objectors against the adversary's filings. Every petition they submit forces courtroom reviews of his hybrid contracts, surrogate embodiment filings, ritual trafficking systems, and technological breath surrogacy programs. As long as these blood-sealed petitions continue to enter heaven's docket, the adversary remains under legal contestation. His petitions for absolute dominion remain incomplete while the remnant functions as legal witnesses who expose, contest, and dismantle his filings. The adversary's counterfeit kingdom depends on total breath economy consolidation through spirit, tech, finance, governance, embodiment, all merging under the breath throne. But because the remnant continually severs his breath contracts, exposes his surrogate systems, and reclaims trafficked breath fragments through the blood, his economy remains fragmented and incomplete. His counterfeit registry cannot stabilize into full legal sovereignty as long as the remnant operates their courtroom assignment. Only after the Father removes the remnant's restraining presence, whether by translation, removal, or fulfillment of their testimony, will the adversary be permitted to present his final petition for enthronement before heaven's court. Until then, the remnant stands as a living legal blockade to the serpent's counterfeit government, holding open the breath reclamation window for souls to be redeemed, petitions to be filed, and evidence to be gathered for the final judgment. At the conclusion of the breath war, when the restrainer is lifted, the serpent will file his final petition. But even then, it will be presented into a courtroom already stacked with the remnant's indictment filings. Every codex scroll unsealed, every breath fragment reclaimed, every surrogate filing dismantled will stand as overwhelming evidence against the counterfeit registry. And the Lamb will be seated as judge, the remnant's filings will testify, and the serpent's throne will be permanently dismantled. The scroll itself becomes part of the remnant's legal filing. The unsealing of the codex, which I believe are my books. Now, I'm not being boastful. I'm just really proud of all of it. I'm not being prideful, but man, was it a journey writing these books during the worst times of my life. The unsealing of the codex is not simply a prophetic exercise or an academic mapping of the adversary's government. It is an active legal submission being prepared for heaven's Supreme Court. As the breath war approaches its final courtroom phase, the Father has commissioned the remnant to document, expose, and file the full legal architecture of breath theft as formal evidence against the serpent's counterfeit throne. The scroll being written is not only for earthly understanding, it is being compiled as a living legal record to be entered into heaven's indictment proceedings. Every chamber of this codex, every section on hybrid bloodlines, surrogate breath contracts, dimensional trafficking systems, financial enslavement structures, AI surrogate management, transhuman embodiment programs, Babylonian priesthood extensions, technological surrogacy, and counterfeit registry filings, functions as an itemized list of legal violations committed against the breath registry of heaven. The very act of writing, assembling, and declaring the codex into the earth becomes courtroom testimony that weakens the adversary's legal defense. In the language of the courts, the scroll itself becomes an exhibit of discovery. My work. A formal presentation of the serpent's operating system, stripped of its secrecy, organized into a prosecutorial document that may be submitted into the legal record of the Father's courtroom. The Codex testifies, these are the contracts he has filed. These are the breath systems he has trafficked. These are the surrogate filings he has constructed. And these are the generational bloodlines he has corrupted. And these are the technological vessels he has prepared for counterfeit enthronement. Someone had to do it. God was waiting for us to do it. We couldn't find all this information unless we threw all of Satan's kingdom and all of his books about how to worship him all into one, and then compare all the esoteric religions against the Bible, which is what I did. And this is what came out. So it was like it happened supernaturally. I can't tell you anything else than that. The existence of this scroll removes the serpent's ability to argue ignorance, confusion, or complexity. It demonstrates that his filings were deliberate, methodical, and predatory, operating entirely outside the lawful issuance of heaven's registry. The scroll speaks as evidence that the remnant not only saw the architecture, but formally recorded it, petitioned against it, and submitted it under the covering of the blood of the Lamb. This scroll also operates as a petition multiplier because every reader, every intercessor, every remnant saint who studies and prays through the Codex adds their name to the list of legal witnesses who have entered this indictment into heaven's docket. That means everybody who reads this book entirely, they're part of it. This scroll operates as a petition multiplier. This scroll also becomes both a written document and a living testimony, expanding the witness class that will stand before the court at final judgment. At the closing of the breath war, this scroll will stand before the throne alongside every petition the remnant has filed. The full legal architecture of breath theft will be read aloud, and the adversary's counterfeit registry will be stripped of defense. The treasury of trafficked breath fragments will collapse, and registry ownership will return fully to the Father through the Lamb, whose blood stands as the highest legal contract in all of creation. The end. That was a long, long 4 days, my friends. I hope this book has opened your eyes, given you new ways of prayer, and maybe grabbed you into this fight and help you fight against the devil that steals our breath. We're under a breath war. That's why my book is called Breath War, because it totally explains Adam getting the breath from God, and then the devil starting to steal that breath just so he can survive and have power and dominion over us through the spark of life that God gave Adam. And that leads us to now, where we are so close to the end of days, that most Christians today couldn't deny that we are living in very troubled times. I will open the session now to questions and answers. I know a lot of you have been asking me to do that, but I don't see a lot of people online right now. But if you can do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that like button, please. I need you to go hit thumbs up for my show. That would really help me. Thank you very much. I see 7 of you, but only 2 likes. Would really help if you just go, oh, okay, James, I'll hit that like. All right. That's it. I'm going to wait 1 minute for any questions. And if not, you're going to have to email me. This is my book, The Breath War. I wrote it last year, and I have continued to write more books to add to the codex. This codex is a documented witness of what Satan has done on earth that will be submitted to heaven. And this will, well, kind of help usher in the end of days, because this is what God has been waiting for, I believe, is to have Satan's system completely exposed, uncovered, and then the witnesses, the saints, will continue petitioning against his breath theft. So there you have it. All right, I see no questions. So there you have it, guys. Thank you so much. God bless you. God keep you. God thank you. This has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. That was the narrated novel, Breath War. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.
This has been Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner. Go to his website, jamescarner.com, and sign up for his newsletter. Also, download his free books on the Breath War, the Crown of Blood, and the Ritual Machine. Fix your body by buying his award-winning detox formula, removing heavy metals and parasites. You'll feel better and live longer. Go to elitepotion.com. And one more thing, please. Just try and love your neighbor, because if you do, the world would be a better place. See you tomorrow.